Kazim is also a co-founder of another amazing mastermind called Driven Mastermind. And so we went to that in Vegas Monday through Wednesday. Bryson, my man here, was with me. It was phenomenal. It was a great trip, but it was super exhausting. Like just that travel schedule, trying to stay on top of everything business-wise. We have a webinar funnel launch happening right now, and it's going very well, and it's very exciting. And had to be at on team meetings every morning at 6:30 to keep on top of everything there. Some other meetings, travel, and then on the red eye back home to New York this morning. Neither Bryson nor I got any sleep on the flight, so quite the trip. Bryson, what did we learn? What did we learn on this trip?
Well, a lot.
First of all, maybe not plan the show on the day after a red-eye flight. It might not be.
That's a good one.
Might not be effective. That's the thing. So this show is like, I'm so committed to this that we will make it the fuck happen. Every week I'm traveling, right? Last week we did it from Vegas, from the Wynn Hotel, from my room there. This week it was either stay another night in Vegas or, fly back in the red eye and then do the best we can here. Next week, I'm going to go to Austin Wednesday through Friday. Like every time I travel, I need to think and schedule around this meeting. That is how committed I am to it. So it's an effort. It's quite an effort. And then I have so much travel scheduled in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, it definitely takes some work to stay on top of that. Yeah, what did we learn?
So I think it was really cool. I was really impressed at the webinar. 29 tricks to upgrade.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was good. Yeah. Well, let me just jump on one thing before I get to that, which is here's how I do these mastermind group events. Most people go, and they'll be anywhere from 50 people to 100 people to 200 people in the group. Most people go and they sit in the room and they listen to the presentations, and then they go through the exercises and the worksheets and stuff. I don't do that. I don't sit in the room. For Founders Board, I was barely in the room the whole time. Whenever there is something that involves interaction with other people around the tables or something like that, I will make an effort to be there. But I'm not going to sit in the room through a presentation, someone on stage doing it at 1x speed, right? At natural speed. It's just not what I'm there for. I will get the recordings and then I will import them into my own little private Simplero membership site, and then I will pull them up on my iPad and I will go through them at 1.5x speed while I'm exercising or cooking or making celery juice or whatever I'm doing. So I'm doing something while I'm going through this course or this content, because sitting in the room when there are all these amazing people around me and we're all just staring at the presenter trying to learn something, that's not a good use of my time. So instead, what I do is I spent the time out in the hallway. And the mastermind last week was actually really good for that, because there were some seats and there's some other people who would float around kind of in the back of the room or outside. And then I'd just be if I was outside, I'd chat with the people who came around, or sometimes I'd just be focused on work, but generally I'd chat with the people who came out as well, and we had really cool conversations. Or if there's someone else who was kind of standing in the back of the room, I'd tap them on the shoulder and be like, hey, come on outside, I just want to talk to you about something. And then I'd grab them. And that, to me, is the ideal way to use these events, because I'm there to meet people and network and learn from other people who are in the field and doing this stuff. I also want to learn the content. That's great, but I can do that more effectively on my own time. So that is my power trick for doing mastermind groups: is do not be in the room. Get outside of the room or be in the back of the room, tap people on the shoulder, say, hey, let's go out and chat while they're doing the presentation, so you're not wasting your time just sitting through that stuff, which you will get on a video recording after. And however, if there is group interaction in that room, you want to be there, because that's where you get to know other people. We connect with other people over friction. Right? When there's friction, then we create connection. When there's no friction, when everything's like just smooth, then like we don't make any connection. Like if you're going on the subway here in New York City and like everything just goes out off without a hitch, you ain't talking to nobody probably, and nobody ain't talking to you, and you're not making any friends. If you go to the Starbucks and you get a cup of mocha latte or whatever your taste is in caffeine, you should get off caffeine, by the way. Like, get the fuck off caffeine. Caffeine is not good for you. And everything, just your order is taken and it all goes down without a hitch, you ain't making no new friends. But if all of a sudden, like, the whole place is shut down, or you're on the subway and there's like this like super smelly homeless person, or the train stops and doesn't move, or like some kind of thing happens, now you start talking to each other. There's a great play. It was about a small town in Canada, in Nova Scotia, I think it's called, all the way up in the northeastern part of Canada. So back in the day, when airplanes would fly across the Atlantic, they didn't have enough fuel to make it the whole way. So they would stop over up there at Halifax or Fairfax. I don't know I forget what they're called, but somewhere up there. They would stop there to refuel on the way over. And so there's still a fair bit of infrastructure and airstrips and all that stuff, even though it's not being used anymore. But then when 9/11 happened, a bunch of planes who were bound for the States were grounded there. So they were all forced to land there because they were not allowed into US airspace because we didn't know what the hell was going on. And so they're forced to land there in Canada, and they were actually stuck on the ground for I forget, a week, 10 days, something like that. And in that environment, a lot of friendships for life were made, even some marriages, even some like, I don't know if babies were made there, but
imagine.
But that shit happens because now there's friction, and then we start talking to each other. So the same goes for masterminds and events and coaching programs, etc. Like, create these points of friction where people have a chance to connect with you. A friend of mine is doing a friends newsletter, and it's a brilliant idea. I actually did it for a while and then kind of didn't have the infrastructure to keep it up or the time. So, but the idea was like every week or every 2 weeks or so, sending out a newsletter that's just to my friends, just to keep people in the loop. And this guy is like a fucking master networker. He's like, last I checked, was like 6,000 people in his friends newsletter, right? So like he has this whole infrastructure around finding people on LinkedIn and then connecting with them and then bringing him onto his newsletter and bringing him he'll do like spontaneous gatherings in New York or other places. He used to live here. He lives in Austin now. But that newsletter, the way I think of it, is like it's friction. Every other week, you're sending something out to your tribe that is like just some random things like, hey, something you're excited about, something that's going on, something somewhere you've been or somewhere you're going, or some gadget you found or some article you read or something. And it's all creating this friction for people to kind of stay in the loop with you of like, hey, what's going on here with this person? And then they'll reply because there's something in there that kind of piqued them that was like, oh, that's interesting, like that's fun, like let me hit reply. And so it's a great way to keep in touch with your extended network. Dude, I should do that again. I mean, it was such a great fucking idea. But I should so do that again. It's an amazing thing.
So wait a minute. So you're saying that it's just a matter of you saying, hey, this is what I'm going through, this is where I'm at, or this is kind of, I found this cool.
He'll like write a bunch of links to some articles he's read or a new recent blog post he's written, or some like thing that you got widget he found on Amazon that was super useful, and just like, hey, from Mexico, I'm traveling this week for this, that, and the other thing, and check out what my friend is doing. And here's a friend of mine who's needing help he's trying to sell his company, so if anybody knows someone who's interested, he'll do something like that as well from time to time.
That's interesting.
It's a great idea.
And you have no like desire for anything out of it. It's just a matter of there's a total desire for something out of it, which is that you strengthen your bond with your network, right? So now, think about like the past week, we've met a bunch of people. Just put all of them on your friend's newsletter, and then you up top you just say, hey, like we met somewhere. I put you on my friend's newsletter. Feel free to unsubscribe if you don't want it. I won't feel offended. I promise.
but then you just put people on that thing. Don't ask for permission, just do it. And then if they want it, they can keep receiving it. If they don't, they can unsubscribe. It's totally fine, right? But that way, now all of a sudden those people, rather than being just like this random person that you met once, now you're in their inbox every other week and they're reminded, oh yeah, this guy, oh, you're doing this. Oh, that's interesting. I could use that in my company. Or, hey, you're doing this campaign, this launch, that's amazing. Like maybe I can support you. You're putting on a summit. Let's talk about that, right? So this is different from kind of your business newsletter. This is more for your network and your peers, right? But there can obviously be overlap. Hey, I just did this show and we talked about this and I thought that would be helpful for you. Let me put that clip in there as well. Yeah. Dude, I think that's a super fucking power move. Yeah.
So it's not marketing at all.
No. We're not trying to sell anything. Yeah. We're just trying to strengthen relationships, build relationships. Yeah. I think it's super dope. Because I'm super, like relationships are so freaking crucial and important. And I think they're especially important to me because I moved from Denmark to this country. And at an emotional level, there is this, it feels less secure, right? When you grew up in a place, you have an inherent network there from like all the years you lived there, your childhood, your school time, whatever. I've never worked at another company than mine or my parents. It's not true. I worked for one company in Boston, and I have some relationships from there as well. But like typically, like we make a lot of like, we kind of grow roots in those early years during our upbringing. We have our whole extended family, all of that, right? I have none of that here. So I've had to build up everything from the ground up in this country. I didn't know anybody before I came. I don't have any family here. I don't have any connections or ties here. So I've had to build that up. I think that's one of the reasons that I do a lot of different masterminds is like as a way to meet people who are kind of my peers, and then over time you get to know them, and then like that becomes sort of my extended network, right? But yeah, so one of the things I've done is do dinners, and I've gotten out of that. I need to get my infrastructure in place again to do that more regularly. But so I would do a dinner every Thursday night for some of my network here in the city. And I want to change that format a little bit and be more intentional about who I invite to that dinner, et cetera. But that's part of the networking as well. I'm going to a friend's in Austin next week. His name is Tim Francis, and he does these dinners, I think about once per month. So I'm going to experience his, and then he's going to share his entire playbook around it with me after. And then I get my housekeeper, my personal assistant, and my executive assistant to just orchestrate the whole thing so that all I need to do is show up, like, change into my dinner jacket 20 minutes before and I'm ready to rock, right? That's the idea. In the past when I did this, I had a personal chef private chef come in and cook for us. So I didn't have to do that or deal with any of that stuff. She did amazing, and setting up and cleaning up and all of that stuff. So I was basically could just roll in. But the point being that as an adult, we have to be intentional with our networking, with building those relationships. And a lot of people are a little hesitant to do that. They're like, oh, like, is it awkward to say, hey, can we be friends? But the reality is that, dude, most people are feeling disconnected. Most people are lonely. They want to make friends, right? They want to grow their relationships and their friendships. And so you taking the initiative and asking and inviting is actually a huge gift. Now, they're also super busy. Like people my age, a lot of them still have kids living at home. They got businesses, multiple businesses, right? They're super busy. So which is why meeting at these mastermind events is so great, because now we're all there together. It's kind of like a family reunion type thing versus going to someone's house or something, or like just meeting up for dinner. It's kind of cool because you're together for an immersion for an extended period of time, and you keep rubbing shoulders over a 2-3 day event. Whereas when I visited my friend Kazim over the weekend, I stayed at his house, and he has 2 kids, And it was like right before putting on this mastermind event, their first event of this brand new mastermind. And so it was like freaking, and they were also dog sitting 2 dogs, one for their neighbor and one for his mom. So it was pretty chaotic. And so usually that like, I know Kazim and I are very good friends, so it's like it's not an imposition. But for most other people, I would I'd be worried about the feeling a little imposing on their on their shit by doing that. But when you can do something like that, which is also why I love inviting people into my home, it just instantly becomes more intimate than like just meeting for dinner at a restaurant or something, right? So I love that.
I think it's cool though, because I look at how you built Simplero, right? And your biggest asset for our growth has been through partnership.
Yeah.
And I think that mindset of, building connections and digging deep, I think you definitely, 1, specialize in it. And I think number 2, it definitely permeates in just the direction that we're heading in.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know how to do that, though. I would say this, at those events, it's hard because I feel like people look at you as like with a dollar sign, like how many dollar signs do you have over you?
Right.
And it's just like, like the list of dollar signs you have, over your score, then it's like you get that vibe.
Dude, I think that's in your head.
Yeah.
I don't think people are looking with dollar signs, because some are, for sure.
Yeah.
No question. And then don't make that about you. That's about them, right? And so if you show up with like, fuck dollar signs, show up as pastor, right? As like life counselor, like who cares about the fucking dollar signs, right? You just have to shift them out of that frame where they're in so that you can talk about the stuff that you want to talk about. Yeah. And the superpower is to be vulnerable, right? Let them know where you're struggling, where you're weak. If you show up that way, they're not interested in the dollar signs anymore, right? They're like, immediately when someone's like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, like, sure, a few people are going to be like, oh, what a loser, fuck you, I'm out of here, right? But 98% of people are going to be like, how can I help? Right? You're giving them purpose. So, and I think a lot of people in that group are rich enough that they know that it's not about the money. I think what they might care about is like, are you an action taker? Are you someone who does shit? Are you someone who's just like talking? Because at some of these groups, there'll be a lot of just like blabbers, like just talkers, right? That come again and again, and every time it's the same problem. They're not taking action. They're not doing anything. And so that gets, and especially if then they have opinions about all kinds of things on behalf of others, right? That's another common problem, is people who have opinions about what one should do, but it doesn't have personal experience about it. And it's like, yeah, like I've heard all these things. Like I'm looking for people who are in the trenches doing the thing, who can tell me how to do that. So, but I would say you set the frame based on how you show up. And when you show up real and vulnerable, people fucking love that. Everybody's craving connection. Everybody. And that starts with connection to self. Most people are not connected to themselves. So when you show up connected to self and confident in that way, that comes from just being who you are and not being ashamed of it, and just, confident in yourself with everything is amazing, everything that sucks. That rubs off on people.
Do you think, what do you think it is? Shy as an excuse, or is that just people being fearful? Because someone say, well, I can't do that, I'm shy, or, X, Y, Z.
I think that's real. Shyness is just another word for fear, right? So what is it that we're afraid of? What are you afraid of? I think it's like, I used to be quite timid. So some of these things can be very deeply ingrained in us, and it's not just like a mental snap decision, right? It's physical. I remember, like I was riding shotgun with a friend, in his car. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and I was just like super tight and tense. Like whenever I get in the passenger seat of someone else's car, for some reason I get like super awkward and like tense. And he was commenting on it, and he was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like. I just get really awkward, and I wasn't able to I could see it, I could see myself doing it, but I wasn't able to switch it off. And so that was that was a lot of me. Like if you look, I have some of my journals from high school days up there somewhere. And if you look through them, it's a lot of like, I'm super aware of how low self-esteem I have, how little confidence I have, how like awkward I am and feel, and how me feeling low self-esteem and feeling awkward makes me awkward and makes like, I was fully aware of this loop and I was freaking unable to break it because it was just so ingrained in me. And this is where, thoughts become feelings, become, tension in your body really becomes like programmed so deep into your unconscious mind. It takes a lot to break out of that. And I have done a lot to break out of that. I'll still get a little shy and awkward sometimes at these events. It's like, it's normal. Everybody does, right? But I would say definitely make yourself get out of that shell, but don't do it by like pumping your chest up and getting all braggadocious and be like, yeah, man, I'm this shit. Like, do it by getting vulnerable, right? Do it by opening and revealing. Like, even like, hey, I come to these events and I'm like, I feel so awkward. I feel out of place. I feel insecure, right? I was at a previous one back in April, and I had some real fucking triggers come up because I felt like everybody else were so much more successful than me, and it really got to me. And so I would it happened twice, one each of the 2 days. And so what I did was went to my room and I started processing and feeling. I would journal. I would feel. I'd like to put a hand on my right hand on belly, left hand on heart, and just like feel. It's kind of like, yeah, you connect into your heart and to my little boy that lives inside, and just like feeling, listening, being curious. I had a mentor at the time that I talked it through with, or texted with about it, and then I would I'd arrive to a deeper level of compassion for myself and for that boy. Because like the way I always think about it is like whatever we're saying to ourselves, we're saying to that little child that lives inside, right? So it's like you're nothing compared to these other people. Would you say that to a child? I mean, maybe you would, but it's not a fucking good thing to say, right? So don't say that to yourself because you're saying it to a little child. And maybe you're saying that to your little child because that's what your parents said to you, but that wasn't a good thing that they said. So better fucking stop that now. And so I'd go to my room and I would spend like half an hour, 40 minutes processing, feeling, lying down, just journaling, whatever. And then I'd come back out and I'd be connected with it more. I'd still have that feeling. I'd feel a little bit better because now it's moving through me. And then I'd go out and share with people. I'd be like, yeah, dude, this happened this morning. And I just got like really triggered. And I felt like, shit, I'm like, unworthy, I'm not good enough, like everybody else here is making so much more money, they're so much smarter than me, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And then like lo and behold, most people I talked to were like, me too, same fucking thing. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, it's tough at these events. You go look at all these people and you just feel inferior, and like, thanks for voicing that. And it's like, boom, connection, right? That's the fucking beauty of it. So if you can show up in that way, dude, you're gonna instantly break through all that bullshit.
That friction is real. Mm-hmm. You feel like that if we repeat these cycles, it multiplies the feeling of inferiority. Like if we just keep going through that in our heads, it'll multiply that, and it becomes something that like overshadows our essence and being.
If we go through the negative cycles,
that loop, yeah, does it just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger until we?
Yeah, and I mean, until you like, we can loop mentally forever, right? Until you choose to stop it and be like, all right, I'm not going to listen to these thoughts anymore. I can't stop them from happening. Thoughts do whatever the fuck they want, but I can stop listening to them, stop believing in them, and then instead put my focus and attention in my body, right? My feeling. How am I feeling? And that can be hard as well. It can be super hard. Like, what am I feeling? And not like what, not label it, but just feel it. Feel the physical sensations in the body. My experience is like in the beginning, it was almost impossible for me. I remember this moment, high school age. We watched a movie, and it was like super emotional, and I could just feel the tears welling up. And it was in the movie theater, and I really wanted to fucking cry, but I was too scared to be seen crying. I was with my mom and my brother and my aunt. I was just too scared and too ashamed. And so I was like, how? Maybe if when I come home, then I can go for a walk with the dog. We had a dog. Let me go for a walk with the dog, and then I'm gonna try to cry there because I really wanted to freaking cry. Like I could feel I hadn't cried for as long as I can remember, and I could feel that it would feel really nice, and I wanted to, but I went on that walk with the dog, and I was like, come, let's go, like feel it again, come in, get into it, like fucking nothing. I was like sitting right there behind my eyeballs, and like nothing was happening. Learning to feel, if we've never been good at it, is a freaking process. It's work. I was talking to, and then as you do that, you get better at it. Now you're much more available. But then you get to some deeper feelings. That's been my experience. You get to some deeper layers of feelings that are kind of harder and harder to break through. So I was speaking to a friend at this mastermind, and so I'm going to be speaking at a bunch of events for entrepreneurs coming up. I'm building up my speaking career, and one of the topics that I am talking about that seems to be really resonating with event organizers so far is talking about feelings in groups of entrepreneurs, because nobody fucking talks about that. Right? At these events and conferences and whatnot for entrepreneurs and business owners, like we're talking about marketing strategies and webinars and all these things, and maybe we talk about hiring and team and all that stuff, but there's very little about actual feeling, emotional intelligence, and that's the thing that I'm so passionate about, because every single breakthrough that I've ever had has come from an emotional breakthrough. There is some emotional block inside of me that made me struggle with this. The solution was always there. The tactics, the strategies, all that shit, there's nothing new. There's nothing new. Yeah, you might come up with a hack of some sort, but there's like it's kind of all the same shit. But what matters is that are you in an emotional place where you're able to take advantage of it, or are you being run by your fears or your insecurities or your victim personas or some other on your trauma patterns? Like you're being run by some of those patterns. That's how you're gonna be stuck. And once you unlock that, boom, like the solutions just present themselves. I've seen that over and over again in my life and in other people's lives. So I'm going to be talking about feelings. There was, at the event last week, there's a friend who came over and was like, hey, can we talk about the inner game stuff? I'm like, absolutely, any fucking time. So, and then I really helped him understand feelings in a way that he's never done before. Because he was like trying to avoid, he would easily get overwhelmed with emotion, and he was like so tired out. How do I make it go away? And I'm like, you make it go away by going into it. Probably not while you're in a board meeting or something, but when you're alone, you just like go in, allow yourself to feel. And I taught him my principles for how to do that. And then he texted me the next day saying, dude, I did this. It was amazing. This is what happened. And I feel so much relieved. I'm like, good fucking job. Keep going. Right? Keep going. I spent probably at least a year just feeling, just like emptying those reservoirs. As we grow up, we have all these feelings that we can't handle in the moment, and they get stuck inside our bodies. Feelings buried alive never die. They're still there. They cause, unhappiness, relationship issues, health issues, disease, all kinds of shit. They're in there, right? And we need to start emptying those reservoirs. So anytime that you're emotional, that you get triggered by something to be angry or sad or hurt, which is really angry plus sad, or scared or Those are the big three. You want to go into that and be like, yes, so great that I'm feeling angry right now. Let me just like fucking feel it. Don't be like, I'm angry. Just be like, feel the energy. Feel the anger. Anger is amazing. There's so much fucking energy in anger, right? It's a really useful emotion. You can really do shit with it. It's incredible. I love anger. Anger is the fucking best. And I don't have the easiest time with anger. I still have a trouble getting angry because I'm so afraid of being too much and being overpowering. Like I felt like my dad was growing up, and so I was just scared of him, and I don't want to be that. So I'm still holding back on my anger more than I would like to. But whenever I like tap into it and I feel it, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm like, this is amazing. Anger is an incredible feeling. Sadness, grief is like, oh, it's so tender, it's so beautiful. When we go in there and we just like feel the pain, the sadness, the loss of something that happened, is like, oh, it's like, oh. But people, one of the most watched movies of all time was, until some years ago, was Titanic, right? The Titanic was engineered, by the way, like David Cameron, the guy who made Avatar as well, his thing is that he engineers a movie to be one that you want to watch multiple times, because that's how you make your movie the highest grossing movie of all time, right? You need to get people, the same person, to watch it multiple times. And Titanic, the movie, is a freaking emotional roller coaster, right? It is. Like, it's like, oh, and the sadness, like, oh, all that stuff. People love it. People love the freaking emotional roller coaster as long as they don't believe it's true, right? As long as it's not their life, and they believe in like, oh, this is reality, right? But like that, people, like, we love feeling sadness. We love it so much that we go fucking watch that movie and pay multiple times to see the same damn movie, because we feel that, oh, that sadness, we cry, and like just feels so fucking amazing, right? And fear. Also, God, I love fear. Fear is, oh, it's so good. What is fear but excitement with the breath held? Fear and excitement is the same fucking thing, right? It's just, are you actually buying into the fear and you're scared and you're tightening up, and then you're like, oh, or are you allowing yourself to breathe and expand and be with it and just be like, ooh, I feel it, butterflies, like, ooh, it's exciting, right? You fall in love with someone, or you're about to go on stage, or you have this like incredible thing happen in your life. Where is you're like, you're excited. People go on roller coasters. They pay money to go on roller coasters so they can feel fear, but they're opening their mouths and breathing and screaming it out, as they go on that fucking roller coaster, and they call it excitement. It's the same shit. Fear is so amazing. Fear is an incredible opportunity to either recognize that there is danger and take care to protect yourself and your loved ones, or recognize that there's no actual danger and now you get to be courageous. And being courageous feels fucking amazing, right? And excitement feels so good too. So fear is incredible. So we got anger, we got sadness, we got fear, and they're all freaking phenomenal. Enjoy them, love them, ride them, right? We're here to fucking feel, right? If it's not for feeling, this shit has no meaning whatsoever. We're here to feel. So enjoy the feeling of it.
How does that work with sadness though? Can you double click on that? Because for like a lot of films, like if I know the end, I won't watch it.
Right, because you don't want to feel that because it
it
hurts too much. And
Yeah.
So you need to go and you need to go watch it, and then just allow yourself to like fucking feel it, right? And cry and just give into it. Just give in all the way. It's a blessing. It's a gift that you have that easy trigger, right? You just know you got to watch that movie and to the end, and just allow yourself to cry. And you might feel that you're in a free fall and your world is crashing down and this is never going to end, and you get scared of it. So now you have sadness and fear at the same time. So then you just fucking open up more. You're going to be fine. Trust me. You're going to be fine. But it might take a minute, and it's totally cool. And once you get into the habit of it, I lived in India at one point, and we had an extra room upstairs, and I had this desire to start singing. And so I would pull out some of my favorite kind of old-timey songs. My dad had a Billy Joel record when I was growing up, and it was incredible. I loved it. So I picked some of those songs, and I think I put the song on, and then I would just sing along with the lyrics. And dude, I would get to this point in the song, and I'd just break down in tears. Like I had to sit down on the floor. I just couldn't move past that stage. I got so emotional about it. And dude, it was the most exquisite, beautiful fucking thing. And I'd do it over and over and over again. Just go back to the top, sing again, got to that exact same point again. And I was just like, oh, break down over and over again. It's amazing. That last year, about a year ago, I went to see my kids. So my backstory, I got divorced 12 years ago. And my ex-wife has convinced, or whatever, my kids have, let's put it this way, my kids have decided that they don't want to have contact with me. They're 15 and 17 now. So I went to visit them uninvited when I was in Denmark, and just like, hey, I'm your dad. We need to have a relationship here. We need to talk. But the point of my story is that in the car going there, because I had to drive like 2-3 hours to get to my daughter. And in the car there, I'd put on this song or a couple songs that just have those passages that just hit me. And I'd do this exact thing again. I'd like put it on, I'd sing along, I'd get to this point, and I'd just break down in tears as I was driving on the freaking highway. And just, and just like put that song on repeat and just do it over and over and over again. It's a great fucking exercise. It really is.
What is it? What do you feel it accomplishes? Like when we embrace the sadness, like what is that? How do we, because it feels negative, like you can't be sad, like one of those feelings you're not supposed to feel, but you're saying we should embrace it and it's good.
All the feelings we're supposed to feel. Every single one we're supposed to feel. That's the whole point, is like we need the contrast. The only way to know joy is to know sadness. This is why SSRIs and antidepressants and that stuff is so toxic, right? Because it numbs you out, so now you can't feel anything. And then that makes people even more depressed, but now they think that the pill is gonna help them, and so they're even more like scared and at a loss, and like it's terrible. And that's why I think that's why you see that connection between SSRIs and mass shootings at schools, because these kids are put on these drugs instead of getting help and learning how to fucking feel. That's it. We just need to learn to feel. That's it. It's done. But instead of that, we're putting them on drugs, and then they just numb out and they get like even more like fucked up. And then they're like, okay, what the fuck is the way out? I need to do something to fucking feel. And then they do something shit crazy like that. And nobody talks about that. Or some people do, but very few people talk about that. I think it's horrible. But they're all great feelings. And again, point being, people go watch the Titanic multiple times because they love feeling that way. And so the point the point is to empty those reservoirs, right? Wherever you have resistance to feeling something, and most people have a resistance to feeling anger. We're not comfortable in our society with people feeling anger, right? We're not comfortable with it at all. We're basically not comfortable with people feeling anything, right? If people get sad, we're like, oh no, it's not so bad. And we try to talk them out of it. And like, here's a Kleenex or something. We try, like, it's not what you want to do. You just want to be like, yeah, I feel you. I'm here for you. Like, you don't have to be sad just because they're sad, right? You can be actually super happy that they're sad because they're in touch with their feelings. So, being around people who are sad is a skill that most people don't have. Being around people who are scared is a skill that most people don't have. Like, if you're scared, I'm scared of this. I'm scared. I had a woman on a plane some years ago who was afraid of you've seen my puppy, my dog, right? Like this tiny little thing. She can't hurt anybody if she fucking tried. And this woman was like terrified of her. And I'm compassionate. But most people are going to be like, oh, yeah, we need to get the dog away or move you over or do something so you don't have to feel scared. Because we buy into your narrative about like, oh, this dog, because some other dog at some point or whatever your unconscious story is. Instead of just being like, oh, yeah, oh, I get you're scared. Let's just breathe together. Like, you're going to be fine. Like, let's just breathe. It's okay, right? It's okay. You're going to be fine. So we kind of buy into it and think we have to fix things. So with sadness specifically, it's like taking a fucking shower. So sadness, the way sadness works and grief is it comes in waves. When you really hit it, you're just like sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And you're like, this is going to go on fucking ever. And then like 3-4 minutes into it, like you kind of like subsides and you're like, oh, it's done now. And then comes another and you just like start sobbing again and it keeps going for minutes. And this can go on for many minutes and like in waves and waves. And then I encourage you, when you kind of get to the end of the wave, dig deeper. Dig deeper. Milk it for all it's worth. Get some more juice out of it. Stay with it. Right? Don't force it, but invite it. Like, don't try to be like, oh, thank God it's over. Let me shut down. No, dig deeper. And then at some point will come laughter. And it's like super weird because you were so sad and you're sobbing, you're crying. Now you're laughing. What's that about? Right? It's freedom. It's freedom. It's lightness. Like, it's all the stuff that was in you the whole time that's left you. And now there's space for laughter. And then you'll start sobbing again. Right? And then it'll kind of cycle like that for a bit. Sometimes for me, it's taken 20 minutes. Sometimes it's taken an hour and 20 minutes of just like continuing on this like, it's like a vacuum cleaner just like sucking up every last bit inside of you. And then on the other side of that is freedom and joy and lightness. You can literally feel all this weight coming off of you. I think a lot of people who are overweight are because of stored up emotion, fear, sadness, anger. It gets stored in our body. We hide from it, and so we eat to avoid feeling it, to suppress it, to stuff it, right? To protect ourselves. So that is, I think that's a huge part of why people are overweight, is because of that. And so it becomes so much easier. Obviously, diet and everything else, exercise, all that stuff has an impact. My favorite exercise is called PAFI. You can check it out at bva.fit, F-I-T. It's incredible. But the one of the things that workout does, it does a lot of incredible things, but one of the things it does is it kind of gets you into uncomfortable emotional spaces. And so the workout itself is a training in being present with your feelings, with what's coming up for you. And that's super powerful, a super powerful way to, again, trigger these things so you can get out of them. I think the reason I started crying like that when I was singing those songs was like, it hit something in my voice, and there's a lot of sadness stuck in my vocal box, my voice box. What is it called? Voice box? Sure. Yeah, in this, the vocal area. Similarly, with exercises that get you to move in ways that you're not used to, that can really trigger some emotion, because all of that stuff is stored in our body. I remember doing a class some years ago called The Class with Taryn Toomey, and she does like loud pop music and a lot of like repetitive movements, and then like some breaks where you put a hand on your belly and a hand on your heart, and and it's all to the music, and it's like these like big songs that are emotional and stuff. And I, for the first 10 times I went to that, I would just cry every single time. I'd cry just because like we were getting into areas and into movements, into things that would trigger some of my emotions. One of the reasons I hated working out always was because it would make me feel shit that I didn't like to feel, right? And so I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna not like work out. I don't like that. It makes me feel things I don't want to feel, right? No. Do the movements. The body is a brilliant way into the actual emotions, whereas the mind will kind of try to talk you out of it and tell you tall tales and stories and bullshit. Because the storytelling, the narrator part of our brain, the left brain, doesn't know what we're actually feeling, because that's the right brain. They don't connect. whatever story you make up about your feelings is a lie. It's just fucking made up because the part of you that has language does not know why you feel what you feel. You just fucking feel it, right? So your mind will bullshit you from here till I don't know what the saying is, to Rome, to Sunday, every which way. I don't know.
Here to Sunday.
It'll bullshit you. So, yeah.
What do you mean?
So getting into the body, yeah.
So that was intriguing. So our right brain and our left brain don't really have interpretation of each other.
There's very little connection between the left and the right
Really?
hemispheres. Yeah, it's like the colossum something or other. But
Wow.
yeah, it's they are connected obviously, but they're not. They don't really have fully access to each other. There's a phenomenal TED Talk, if you haven't seen it, it's just incredible. Jill Bolte Taylor. I think the title of the talk is My Stroke of Insight. It's just also the title of her book. And she's a neuroscientist or something, some brain person. And she has a stroke where her I think her left brain is offline, online, but with the stroke, and is she goes to the keypad on the phone and all of a sudden she can't fucking make out any of the numbers or any of the things. It doesn't, and then it comes online and she's calling. Then she manages to call 911, but then her left brain goes offline again. She can't fucking say anything and communicate, but she's aware enough to actually notice what's going on. She's like, this is really interesting. I'm a brain surgeon. This is so cool. It's a phenomenal talk. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So that means that with regards to our feelings, our left brain can interpret, is not meant to feel or to understand what we're feeling. Is that what you're saying?
It will make up a plausible story about it, but it's going to be a fabrication because it doesn't know, right? Yeah.
Whereas our body is more in tune with that.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is a lot of the times when you go to these emotional places and you actually release it, like if you're watching Titanic and you watch through the end and you allow yourself to be sad, it's not about the fucking movie, right? That was just a trigger event. You probably won't have any fucking idea what you're crying about. You're just crying. It's just sadness that was in your body and now it's leaving your body. That's it. Right? There's no story around it. A lot of the times we'll make up a story, right? Similarly, when you ask a lot of people, hey, what do you feel? They will start their sentence with, I feel that. And whenever they say, I feel that, you know it's not a feeling, it's a story. And that story is a lie, right? They might believe it, but it's fundamentally a lie. When people say, this is why I love Gay Hendricks' 10-second miracle principle, right? There are only 5 feelings that we need to concern ourselves with. There's anger in the shoulder region. There's grief in the chest area. There's fear in the lower belly area. And then there's joy, which is kind of all over. And then there's arousal, which we all know where it lives. Those are the 5 core emotions. You don't need to worry about any other feelings. You can, if you want to go joy versus bliss versus happiness, or I mentioned before, anger plus sadness equals hurt, right? So we have some of these words that are combined feelings. But if you just stick with those 3, you'll get super far. And just ask yourself and notice in your shoulder area, am I feeling angry? Am I noticing anger? Am I noticing sadness? Or sense of loss? Am I noticing fear? And then just check in. Yeah. Feelings is just shit. I'll share this next week, but in the past week, I learned of a major area where I was still playing victim, and it's been a massive breakthrough. So victim is the other kind of big piece, because the victim role will get us recycling old feelings over and over again. We'll feel hurt and sad and angry and all these things, scared and whatnot. And it's all fucking victim bullshit. But because of that victim persona, we will feel all that stuff so strongly, right? We'll just be but I really am sad, and really you might be, but this is all just part of the victim persona, and you're not getting to the real feelings because the victim persona lives in your left brain. So the left brain through a story or a belief can make you feel stuff, right? If all of a sudden, like, I don't know what your trigger might be, but for me, money has always been kind of a trigger. So if someone was like you're gonna run out of money like in 2 weeks, and you're gonna be like, negative, like, $165,000, just to make up a number, right? That would trigger some fucking fear. But then if the day after someone came and said, "Oh shit, we did some math. We did the math wrong. Like, you're fine," right? And I'd be like, "Okay, I'm great." That was all from a belief, a story in my head, right? Of a perception of the world, or a prediction of something that's going to happen in the future. Now that's making me feel stuff. That's very real. And the opposite is also real, where, due to nutrient imbalances or things of that nature, we can feel stuff like there's a set of feelings that are associated with the liver. Like when you're really kind of detoxing the liver, or when your liver is under pressure, that can make you feel some very sort of heavy, depressed kind of feelings. And so there's that biochemical like thing that can produce feelings as well. And then the tendency is, like, biochemically, we are feeling something because of neurochemistry, biochemistry, and then left brain goes make up a story about it, right? And then reinforces it, and we can like loop around that, which is not helpful. There's an experiment that they did with some inmates where they gave them just multivitamins, and then they stopped fighting as much because they're just like better inner biochemistry, and their livers were better. So, yeah. All right, guys, this ended up being a lot about feelings, didn't it? A lot about feelings. Great seeing you guys again. We should do this more often, or actually, fuck that. We're not going to do it more often. Oh, what was the name of the workout? It's called PAFI. I'll put that in the chat. And the website is bda.fit. Highly recommend it. It's freaking phenomenal. It's so insanely good. It beats any other workout that I've ever come across. Like, most workouts are like, it'll be a yoga, it'll be a lifting weights, or push-ups and that kind of stuff. It might, like Pilates, what have we, like, or some kind of like HIIT or like cardio type thing. PAFI is just so good. It combines basically all these elements, but then it adds something that nobody else does, which is this intense focus on your joints. Starting with your big toe, right? Who the fuck works out their big toe? I do frequently. And the reason why we want to work out our big toe is because every single movement that you make starts in the big toe, right? So if your big toe is not strong and flexible, you're going to be compensating with other muscles in your ankles and your calves and your legs and your hips, your upper body, because you're not in touch with your big toe. So for balance. And so it starts with the big toe, opening all the joints, because when joints are healthy, your body's healthy, right? If you can have all the muscle you want, but what's going to give out at old age is your freaking joints. So you want to take really good care of your joints. And a lot of people, they will lift heavy weights and they'll fuck up their joints. What good is all the fucking muscle in the world? The muscle is there to make the joint move, right? But if the joint is broken, ain't no good. I meet so many people who can't lift their arms over their heads and have like no shoulder movement and shit. I'm like, you got to get that stuff fixed. Like, and you do that by doing PAFI. So it's really phenomenal. It's got the joints. It builds strength and flexibility. There's two youth portals. There's your sternum, and then there's your groin area, and it works those a lot, which helps keep your body young. So that's why we call it younger every day, because it really works those life portals, youth portals, that keep your body flexible and moving in a way that it doesn't age in the same way. It does cardio, it does strength, it does freaking all of it. It's just, and it works your body's emotions, energy systems. It's just fucking incredible. So I didn't come up with it, but I love it so much. That is PAFI. All right, you guys. This is fun. I will catch you guys next week from Austin, Texas. So looking forward to seeing y'all there. Thank you to everybody who showed up, and I shall see you again soon. Bye.